thanks you all for coming. Rana and Josh and Ian have done a lot of great stuff with Alteryx, and as a matter of fact, we awarded them with an Excellence Award last year that came and presented at our conference as well. So I think you'll be really excited by what they have done in terms of not just building their analytics, but actually building the program and how they brought everybody together. I think it's really amazing. So I talked a little bit about Alteryx, and just to recap again, it's just a workflow for going ahead and building out your analytics. It's drag and drop, and some people pick it up in an hour. An hour to learn and a lifetime to master, maybe. There's a lot of capabilities in there. And then I mentioned yesterday, or I mentioned earlier about our hands-on lab. And so here's some information. It's at the JW Marriott, same time tomorrow in room 305. And that's, again, a great opportunity to get going. We'll basically be working off of the thumb drives that you have, so you can get that installed on your machine and everything. And then we'll walk you through, some building of some workflows and everything. I had a very fancy introduction for you guys, but I
totally forgot it.
Totally forgot it. So since you guys have already met the team and everything, I'll just let you go ahead and get started. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so this is what we're going to start with. So this is the agenda for the day. Just as an FYI, I've been editing this presentation literally until I just walked in today. So who we are, who's BAE Systems. The past, before Alteryx and Tableau, the present using Alteryx and Tableau. Some examples, we are a defense contractor, so I can't really share everything out there for you for confidentiality reasons, but we've got a couple examples of what we're doing, how we're also leveraging Alteryx outside of its usability with Tableau, and our plans for the future as a team. So who we are. So, who's heard of BAE Systems, besides the Lockheed Martin guy? Do you guys know what we stand for? Any of these ring a bell? Second. Actually, no. So BAE actually doesn't stand for anything. So BAE was created in 1999 as a merger between Marconi and British Aerospace at the time, and it just is BAE Systems. It does not stand before anyone else or anything like that, but it's kind of interesting a little bit. So yeah, some of us still call it British Aerospace, but it's just BAE. So what I have here is a little video about our company. Let me find it because it's not playing directly from here.
What we do, what I do, matters.
Oh, is it not sure?
We're giving the armed forces capabilities they've never had before. These ships, they're incredibly advanced. And not only...
You guys can't see YouTube? Okay, it's a really good video that apparently does not want to play. No, I'm not that good of an actress, unfortunately. Now, how do I get it back? Okay, here it is.
Will they do great things for the Royal Navy, they're also going to do great things for our economy.
The security and intelligence analysis we provide, well, we have some of the best and brightest minds working 24/7 to stay ahead of the bad guys. Job one is to look out for those who are putting their lives on the line.
Our customers, well, they expect the highest standards. I mean, these are critical networks we're protecting, and we apply some of the most advanced technologies around to keep business, government, and national infrastructure secure.
Modernizing the military with new technology is exciting to see, to be part of. We are here, committed, trusted, to develop manufacturing capabilities in this country, for this country. We're working side by side to make choices that are right for our nation.
Building submarines of this size with these capabilities is no easy undertaking. The work that goes into it is impressive. When it all comes together, it's awe-inspiring.
We never walk away from a challenge. If it needs to be done, if our national defence needs it, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we'll put in the time and the sweat no matter what.
It's amazing. Few technologies protect troops and pilots like this does. I love to hear the stories of how In a split second, it actually helped protect a group of soldiers so they could finish the mission and return home.
It's all about making things better, safer. For passengers, pilots, crew, I'm always thinking about them. So every bolt I touch, everything I do, it needs to be perfect.
Our technology is powering the Mars rover. A piece of us, really a piece of me, is up there doing important work right now. I just love telling my kids that.
The training and education we received is invaluable to operate, to service and maintain these aircraft. To have these new capabilities right here is very exciting. In the end, it helps strengthen our economy, our people, and our country.
This technology, it's dynamic, it adapts to the environment, it's revolutionary.
I am part of something bigger here, protecting our nation's water and our shores. I'm helping build our nation's defense, and together we're building new capabilities in parts of the world that need it most.
I love being part of this. This work that I do, it matters. Even though I may never actually meet the men and women who fly these jets, they're all counting on me to make sure every detail is right, that it just works, and I don't plan on letting it down.
Those men and women out there, they have families, they have people who love them, but they show courage, despite the danger. And I know what I do helps them get the job done and get back home. This is what inspires me. This is what gives meaning to my work.
We also protect those who protect us. So, we are the third largest defense. That just fell off. So, we're the third largest defense contractor in the world. We've got 32,000 employees in the United States alone, in over 48 states plus DC, and 24 different countries. We've got over 80,000 worldwide in 5 different home markets and 6 different continents. We've got $10.4 billion in sales. Now, talking a little about HR, so enough of the fluff, right? So why we exist. So in December 2011, we went through an HR restructuring where we created a shared services model. So all the HR business partners, all their regular paperwork went down to their shared services that's located in Charlotte, North Carolina. And what was created was the centers of expertise that report into the SVP of HR. Those centers of expertise include benefits, compensation, talent acquisition solutions, and then our team, the Workforce Analytics and Compliance Center of Expertise. We're called WAC for short, or WACO if you add COE to the end. Yeah, I know, people like that. They think it's funny. So within the Workforce Analytics and Compliance COEs, right now 3 different teams. You've got the Analytics team, the Workforce Intelligence team, you've got the Compliance and Affirmative Action team, and then the Talent Operations team. So this is the team currently. You've got me, I'm the head. They don't listen to me half the time, but I think that's normal. And then we've got a data scientist who's not here today, a lead BI technologist, Josh, and then Ian, he's the lead BI developer. Our purpose, we utilize data to measure HR strategies. Every metric that we show is always linked to an HR strategy. We determine basically why people leave and how to make them stay, hence our flight risk analysis and possibly quality of hire. And we try to tell the story of our workforce. What makes that organization tick? Why do we want to keep them? And then what you've got here is kind of a couple of our strategies that we link all of our metrics to. So we've got a little video that the team put together about all this stuff that we've done. The data dictionary that we created. Before Tableau. Our methodology. And show us a passage of time. We're gonna need a montage. Our first shot at a dashboard. All the code behind the dashboard. Everyone of what's going on. And with every shot, show a little improvement. To show it all would take too long. That's called a montage. So apparently they're bored while they're creating dashboards. And anything if you want to go. From just a beginner to a pro, you need a montage. Bored enough that they chase all the This video was created in April, so we've come a long way before that. So in 2014, so while we created the shared services environment, one of the things that our HR VP came back and says, okay, we've got a metrics and analytics team. What's going on? We spent about a year looking at the reports that are currently run, the metrics that are currently being presented, and what we found out, there weren't any centralized or harmonized HR metrics across the organization. So what do? So we basically took existing Excel reports that were produced on a monthly basis, worked with some internal software developers that used Apache code, put a dashboard on SharePoint, and then made very simple metrics. That was our first shot back in 2014. It took us about 3 to 5 days to get into production, but every time something changed or every time SharePoint was updated, we went through a rigorous process of trying to make sure all the code worked. And those software developers were sitting on a bench, so when they had time, they could work on our stuff. When they wanted a contract, they could work on our stuff. So we were kind of under their control, under their thumb for a little bit. And then in 2015, what we did is we did flight risk analysis. So you had over 35 data files, internally and externally, all in Excel, out of PeopleSoft, out of our health and welfare vendor, out of our 401k vendor, external information, exit survey, census data, all of that stuff. And we built out a flight risk model using Microsoft Access, and it was all coded in R. At one point, we used SPSS for a very short period of time, but then everything was done in R, and that's where we spent the majority of our time. So that was a very short-lived period and very hard on us. So now we're using Alteryx and Tableau. So phase one, we worked for an outside vendor that actually, until we brought the knowledge in-house, we worked with an outside vendor that helped us get onto Tableau. So what you see here is our initial cut at the first dashboard that we launched in 2015. So we did this in 2 phases. Phase one, let's get a dashboard, move out of SharePoint, let's see what we can do. It was all in SQL Server and all in R. And then there were 70 pages of SQL code. Try going through that and making changes whenever you needed. And then I bought Josh. I bought him, I didn't bring him in. So we were like, okay, what do we need to do in order to take us to the next step? Let's bring this product in-house, let's get rid of the consultants, let's save a little bit of money, and let's do this cheaply, if not free. We were working on a very limited budget, so he took those 70 pages of SQL code and turned it into 17 pages of R code. Still, it was good, but it wasn't good enough. So Josh went to the Tableau conference last year, and he met the Alteryx guys. He's heard of this product. He came up to me when he came back, he's like, hey, I've got this product, it can save us a lot of time, let me demo it for you. My first question was, how much is this gonna cost me? And then I learned facilities pays for IT stuff. And I was like, okay, let's buy it. I can afford it out of my budget, but if somebody else is willing to pay for it, I'm just gonna go for it. So what they did is he showed us Alteryx, we got the trial for about 15 days, showed us the capabilities, and we're like, okay, let's buy it. It was a really cheap buy compared to what we were paying software developers or that third party. I think we invested maybe no more than $4,000 into a product that helped us get into dashboards within 2 days. So those 70 pages of SQL code, that 17 pages of R code, we were basically able to build, this is an example of that workflow, in about a month to build this out and validate the output, and then basically go in November from the third party creating our dashboards and us launching it, which takes up to 2 weeks to do, into us doing it in-house and only taking us 3 days from financial month end to launch a dashboard. Made the data more important and more timely to our senior leaders. So this allowed us to go into mass production of dashboards. We just went dashboard crazy. So we had a diversity dashboard, we've got a TA dashboard, we've got a benefits dashboard that our vendor never provided our benefits team, who still live in Excel and PowerPoint. You know, we've got maps, we've got, you know, we leverage this geospatial package that Alteryx has in order to do drive times instead of using Google APIs to determine that kind of stuff. You know, we did forecasting. So it literally took us to the next level because we were using that one core data set that we used for our monthly HR dashboard, and that's what we leveraged for everything else, bringing in other external data sources from other vendors, but it was just that one core churn file is what they call it that helped us move forward. And in 1 year, we were able to turn all of this for other parts across the business. Then we took our flight risk model that we lived in Access for, And Josh actually built it all throughout Alteryx. The beauty of it is you can actually follow the workflow because he was able to document it. So in Access, it's probably hard to document, so you've got to work in a Microsoft Word document to do your documentation, what each things mean. But here in all the workflow, it's all document, tells you what each cell or each bucket is. And you know what? Those months that we spent on the data processing, I think if we add it all up together for you, it was maybe about a month total. Yeah, and then, and then you could run all the sampling. All the statistics are available in Excel, in Alteryx. You don't have to code, you don't have to do any of that, and you don't need a tech degree to do it. It was literally drag and drop. The fact that HR at BAE is the only, right now it's the only user of Alteryx across the organization. A lot of our engineers and our ops folks like to live in VB or SQL code, but my understanding is they've finally seen the light and are moving forward. I did that. So these are some examples of our existing dashboards. For us, it was something as simple as a geographic map. Who would have thunk it? But our people actually love this. One of our sector presidents said, I can actually talk to my facilities folks when I know that there's a weather event happening in a certain location. I can basically call my facilities guy and tell him, what are you going to do with those 1,000 people that are in San Diego, California? What's going to happen with them? And then the facilities guy's like, I didn't even know there was 1,000. I don't even have that data. So it's that kind of information that you can actually show the value of all of this stuff, and we wouldn't be able to do it without leveraging Alteryx for some part of it. So this is more of our demographics information, more of our foundational attrition and so on. And then this is the forecasting that we were able to use Tableau for. Did the ETS method, and we were able to forecast our future headcount basically 5 years out. You're allowed to do demand and scenario planning throughout. What's your attrition rate? What's your hiring rate? If I change those buckets around, what's my model going to be? What am I going to looking for? What's my gap? And then, yes, Deadpool. Apparently, if you put Deadpool in a presentation, it's supposed to be a good thing. So we talked about Alteryx. We talked about it in Tableau. And let's talk about Alteryx without Tableau. I know it's a Tableau conference, but it's also got other usabilities. So like I said, we have the workforce intelligence team, and then in addition to that, we've got our affirmative action and compliance people. So defense contract, we've got to do affirmative action plans and so on. We actually outsource our show vendor, but the data still sits in-house, and we have to do all the cleansing ourselves, or at least that team. So a process that takes about 3 months. They built out the workflows, and we were able to, and the team was actually able to create the workflows and then leverage them, and then be able to actually basically get the third-party vendor our data within a month, and then turn around and get the plans in less than 2 months total time. So instead of rolling out affirmative action plans Q2, we are able to roll out affirmative action plans in Q1. In addition, I think for the first time in the past 4 years, we've been able also to do mid-year plans that we could roll out in a month total, because we also built out that workflow. In addition, we've got the EO1 and VETS processing and submitting of that data, built out that workflow, cut out the middleman. Instead of 3 months, now we're down to a month submitting that information. We can submit it ahead of time. Our compensation team, I don't know if Dan is here. Maybe not. But so our compensation team also uses Alteryx. They leverage it for their HR dashboard, for their compensation, their merit planning, their incentive comp planning, and so on. And they're also using it to integrate market pay data, so external data by metro regions, combine it with their current salary structures, and kind of slice and dice the data, she told me, by 64,000 ways. Not necessarily for Tableau, but in order to do that deep dive analysis, and they don't have to live in Excel or pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, or any of that going forward. So for them, it's cut down a lot of their processing time. You get out of Excel, you get out of your head, and once you build the workflow, I think once, you're just done. Updating it is simple. Like I said, I'm not the user. These guys are. They can talk more about it than I do. But it was a great investment for us, and it was a cheap investment. So our future. What do we plan on doing next? We finally got the approval for Tableau Server, so we're going to work on that upgrade next year with IT. We've only been using Tableau for about 1.5 years now. So for us to get Tableau Server, and it's mostly used in HR, you've got other functions that are operations engineering across the enterprise that actually use it. But HR is the one that led the path for Tableau and the approval for Tableau server. So we're the ones that made the business case. We got approval from our CEO and our CFO. So then with that comes the redesigning of all the dashboards and all the tips and tricks that we heard this morning of the future. We're kind of really excited about what we can do. I don't know if any HR folks have here partnered with finance to get a cost of workforce dashboard. Okay, we might hit you guys up next because we're planning on doing that in the next 6 months. Institutionalizing flight risk, root cause diversity, quality of hire, and then continuing the adoption of analytics across the enterprise, and then for me, taking over the world one home market at a time. And I think that's all I've got. Yeah, that was a really quick presentation. Hey. So our thoughts on quality of hire analysis. So I don't know if any of you guys sat into the HR one that Dell just did earlier this morning and they talked about it. And I kind of wish that other people had heard that too within our organization because it's not as easy as it looks. So for us is, first of all, we've got to figure out our talent acquisition data and what's coming out of Connexa, what's actually a good thing and what's a bad thing. Second, we've also want to do quality of hire surveys. We haven't done that. We're not a very survey-friendly company. Our CEO doesn't want people over-surveyed, so we've got to be careful with some of that. So we are looking at, a quality of hire for the manager, a quality of hire for the employee. And then trying to, take a look at what makes a good hire. Who's going to stay here longer? What kind of attributes are you looking for? But it's all in the end, it's all going to come up to the verbal conversations. It's not necessarily the numbers parts of it. So. Yeah, so for us, it's kind of part of the discussion because you've done flight risk, so what are you going to do the whole life cycle? Yeah, so we're starting the conversations, but we know that it's going to take us a while to get there.
Are you guys doing performance evaluations with a number, or
Yes.
has your organization gone away from that?
No, we are doing them with a number. Granted,
That makes it a little easier, right?
as a government contract, we don't have a choice. But I know there are parts of the organization that are looking at testing not to do numbers. But still, I think everybody in their head does numbers somehow in a way to try and figure out why you're getting that merit increase, why you're moving forward. But yeah, no, we do PDRs with numbers. Any questions about Alteryx?
Are your dashboards today, are they all from data from PeopleSoft?
So it's a combination. So we've got PeopleSoft, we've got our impact tool, which does the awards. We've got our exit survey, which is Confirm It. So we do bring all of those sources in.
And you're using Alteryx to sort through each of those?
Yeah, they built out the workflow. So it literally takes it in. And as we make updates, it's just kind of tweaking that workflow to make sure that everything goes forward. But we also go through rigorous validation before anything goes out. Because technology is only as good as you set it up to be, and you never know where mistakes might happen as you make updates to the dashboard and start doing different metrics. So we do constant evaluations, and we review that data to make sure that it's the right attrition that's being calculated, showing the right metrics.
Is all your data internal?
No, we do use external. So the 401k stuff that they do for the dashboarding is external. That's all from a third-party vendor. The same thing with our health and welfare information. So not everything is internal. It's a mixture of both.
Right. So I did an initial look at Informatica, and I think that if the plan is for you to do your own data prep, then I strongly recommend Alteryx. It's much more user-friendly. It's a lot easier to work with. Informatica is more of an IT scale solution, and also Informatica doesn't have the predictive analytics. That one slide that you guys saw with the so Alteryx is a lot more user-friendly. It's a lot easier to pick up. And that one slide that's at the back right here.
Yeah.
Okay. The one slide that had the multiple lines, if you can go back to
Deadpool?
the prediction one, the one with the forecast tool. Okay, so this right here, right? It looks pretty basic, and apologies for the wingdings in place of actual numbers, but you know, a defense contractor, right? So 3 of those lines are generated within Tableau, and that's great, and you could probably find on the web how to do it, or email me, and I'll tell you how to put it together. That blue line, though, comes from Alteryx, and what Alteryx can do is you can do forecasting of your workforce. So I'm assuming that a lot of you guys have roster files, and you probably got snapshots sitting somewhere in a folder, or maybe you just have an HRIS, right? You take a bunch of those, you can feed them into Alteryx relatively quickly. Then you put that through a forecasting tool that they have available. The forecasting tool will actually put out how many months or years or whatever time period you want to forecast, and you can pick how you want to do your forecast, ARIMA, ETS, and it doesn't matter if you don't know what those mean. You can just look it all up with the help button, and then it'll give you a forecast based on what's been happening. If you have retail, you can insert seasonality, things like that. And it gives you that blue line right there, in the middle is that's Alteryx's prediction that we then injected into Tableau. Tableau does have its own forecasting, but it's not as flexible, and it's really hard to integrate it with other calculations within Tableau. It's a big limitation right now. Hopefully I'm not insulting any Tableau people right now. Yeah. So the question was about, do we have to do a lot of trial and error to test our models? Yeah, yes, we work on that. Alteryx has built into it, you can do sampling. You can also, Rana was discussing earlier, the validation. We can do that with Alteryx to validate our own dashboard if we want to. It lets you do pivot tables, but it's their own version. It's called the summary tool. It's a lot easier to use, and it's repeatable. But yes, there's different ways to do testing. They have this one tool when you're doing prediction or forecasting called scoring, and you can test that, and you can even build into your workflow a little section that goes down for testing. And every time you run your workflow, you can go down and check where it does a split between the sample and see how you're doing compared to your old forecasting.
So, and just to follow up on that, for one of our businesses, they actually forecasted their headcount through 2020, and the forecast that we built, just assuming historical and kind of changing some of the attrition and the hiring numbers based on what they were looking at, their hiring growth, we came with about a 2 to 3% of what they were projecting that they would be in 2020. So, and we update all of ours on a monthly basis. That's how often we kind of get our, HR data doesn't really change that often. It's not going to drive attrition as much and things like that. But we update on a monthly basis, and each dashboard that we have gets updated with that data. So, what you don't see here is a retirement risk dashboard with the heat maps. Certain industries are a little older than others. So you do have those issues. So, So as you see those forecast numbers going back to 2014, our historical, we update that continuously, and then it's always going to affect. But then that's why you also have your modeling, because here you see if you want to get to a certain number in the next 5 years, you can see how you need to change your attrition, or at least your voluntary or involuntary, you kind of might not have control over, but then to figure out what your hiring rate's going to be. So then you get that gap modeling there.
Yes, so the question was, have we been able to reduce the time, and have we leveraged automation between Alteryx and Tableau? Yeah, we've, in fact, this forecast right here, what we use with Alteryx is you can output, whatever you pull into Alteryx, you can output to Excel, you can output it to a CSV, you can output it to XML, databases, SQL. One of the options that he was talking about earlier was a Tableau data extract. I output this directly to a Tableau data extract, then I can just go straight to Tableau, refresh the extract, and actually, I don't even need to refresh it. It just updates automatically. Go back to it, and it's ready to go, and then I can save and export it. You can also, there also is a tool in Alteryx where one of the outputs is actually an output to Tableau server. So if you already have Tableau server set up, then you can output directly to the TDE on the server. You just have to put in the right parameters.
And if you're really crazy and you really want to get into it, you can update the actual TWBs through through the custom R scripts within Alteryx, so you can go and change all the XML on the back end that you're not supposed to do, but
Yeah, you can automate the hacking. If you guys are into hacking your Tableau files, maybe you're into that. Maybe you're going to take a class on it tomorrow. But yeah, you can automate those hacking through Alteryx as well.
Fiscal year. No, hold on. No, we're on a calendar year end. Sorry.
But we have
your fiscal
January
month,
through
calendar year.
12/31, but we have
Yeah.
weird financial month ends. But the year ends on 12/31.
Right. And
We
the
don't
great-
follow government.
And the great thing about that is Alteryx has logic that lets you deal with dates so that we have these weird fiscal months. You can code somebody to the right fiscal month using the date ranges and different functions. Yes, and we have a whole structure that you saw on a snapshot that handles that. Oh, then sounds like you may want to try to at least take a look at this one then. Yeah, yeah. Performance management.
PDRs. We haven't started down that path yet with the natural language and things like that. That is something we're looking at, but our PDR process seems to change every year.
Right.
So, we can work, we're infiltrating HR one step at a time. Infiltrating. So that's something that we could do next, but it's, for us, it's, with the PDRs, it's very kind of close hold, so it's kind of hard to share some of that information out to do that. Is that something that you guys are doing?
Right, it's possible to do, it just depends on what you're looking to do. Generally, if the NLP processing can be done in R, then you can probably do it in Alteryx, either through an R script that you inject into Alteryx, or through one of the tools. Yeah, they're working on natural language. It just depends. When you say NLP, I mean, that's a big category.
Sentiment.
You can do that with R. If you're talking about sentiment analysis, it depends. I think the answer to your question is it depends, because it's a big category.
So as far as that benefits, suppose if we have a change to benefits like health policy, can you see the impact of a certain new policy and what kind of impact it has on retention?
So the question was, are we able to see the impact of a change in benefits or telecommuting policy to our attrition or something?
Yeah. So that's something we're actually building out right now. We only received the benefits files 2-3 months ago. Still getting new requirements every day. Then that's one of the things that we're going to be tying into our flight risk model. Is one of those big things is, there have been some significant changes in healthcare costs since the Affordable Care Act. A big thing that we don't traditionally look at is the changes in healthcare over the year when you see a life event and how that will affect somebody's tenure. So it is something that we're planning to build in. It's definitely on the horizon, but I think there's a lot there. I have been looking at 401k contributions in terms of how that relates to retirement. And this is where you really can't say, well, this causes that. The causations, we're not going to touch that, but there's huge correlation.
Right.
To the point where I had to just run it multiple times to make sure I wasn't getting it, because it was like that 97.9%, which anytime you see anything that high, you think you're wrong.
You suspect overfitting.
You're probably already wrong, but yeah.
Right. One thing that to give an example, so we haven't looked at that specifically, but Rana has been directing us. The flight risk was kind of her brainchild, and then, so we've been getting requirements from her and other folks around. We're looking at different things. Like one thing we've looked at recently is our own award structure, whereas a lot of you guys probably have implemented maybe some rewards systems where people can give each other rewards, monetary, small bonuses just for a pat on the back, job well done. We are currently correlating that with attrition to see if, maybe how many awards did a person who's been working for us get on average over the span of time that they've been working for us. And that's like survivability analysis. And then we have found some impact that generally people who get more awards stay. The question is it chicken and egg, you know? And it always raises questions, but it's always really good to do that analysis. And we've been able to do all that within Alteryx, which is really cool to be able to just put that together really fast. And if you have a problem or a gap within your data, you can usually plug or fix it within that tool. Obviously, if you're missing 80% of your data, then it's a source issue, but it helps you identify that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't know how many people have built their models out in R or Python.
The point is you guys don't need to do any coding. Like if you're doing coding and you're in HR, you're already in a special zone already, right? You're in a new territory, but
Not short about special.
Yeah.
Just oh yeah, sorry, HR.
Yeah, HR is always the. The point is with Right.
Doesn't know how to use Tableau, and they're not willing to basically support a lot of HR projects in our future. So we're kind of doing our own. We're building our own internal BI and kind of having to take control, running our own tests. We don't have to rely on anybody else. And it's actually cheaper because the way our IT structure works is they have to bill us back.
And coding is time intensive and it's hard to share. Like honestly, if you guys are already attending this conference, you're well within the range of capability. If you're using Tableau, you can probably use Alteryx pretty easily. And in that case, your team members probably can too. And the point is if you, if you quit or get hit by a bus or whatever that phrase is that people use for redundancy, yeah, if you win the lottery and quit, you can pass your workflow on to somebody else. We had a data scientist who left recently, and I was able to pick up his workflow and run from there without, and documentation, let's face it, if you are documenting that stuff, how often are you gonna have time to update that? You've got people coming to you for your real job, you don't have time to be doing the documentation. So if the work has the documentation and the workflow within it, it really saves a lot of trouble. Plus, if you go on vacation, just make sure that they know where your workflows are. A lot of times they can just open it up, press play, maybe add one file to it, and you're good to go, and you don't have to bring your laptop with you to, I guess you guys all go to Barbados. But you don't have to bring your laptop with you on vacation, and that's a big plus, I think.
Yes.
Do you guys use 360 reviews? Yes. And if you do, how do you integrate?
So we do use 360 reviews, but they're ad hoc. So we kind of got rid of the whole idea is you have to do them. So it just depends on the management and the leadership if they think you need them. So, and we don't really do it, so when it comes to any of those reviews, we don't really do anything with them. The discussion is between the manager and the employee, so we don't source them, we don't run metrics on them. What we have looked at is looking at the bell curve for our PDR scores, and then how everybody else scores against them. And one thing that and let's be honest, we're a little too generous. And what we're also looking at in the future is to figure out our succession pipeline based on that. So that is something we're looking at hopefully next year.
One little other question. I noticed on the slide that current trends, what number of employees, is that an increase or an absolute number?
The number of employees?
Oh, right.
Under current trends?
That's a snapshot. That's like the latest. So what we would do is when we update we'd update this, like this is as of September 2016, right? Because I'm lazy and I didn't feel like updating the image. But basically we've got the number of employees. That's how many we have as of September. Exactly, something to that effect. And then what you've got is our current as of September based on all the data prior. What's our annualized hiring rate, annualized retirement, annualized voluntary, annualized involuntary? Sometimes that matters, right? Then the median age and median tenure of your workforce as of that month. No, it's not. It's an annualized snapshot based on the range of dates that we set. But it's similar to attrition. So if you know how annualized attrition rates work, it's the same thing, just hiring and then the different breakdowns. And it all depends on your company, right? We use the industry benchmark annualized rate.
So we do benchmark headcount internally against finance numbers, where our headcount should be at a period of time. So we do have that information, but for right now, nobody's tracking any percentage growth. It's not something our leadership is interested in, depending on the market that they're in.
Do you use the same hierarchy that finance uses?
So it depends. We use their financial month end. So they use FTEs, we use actual headcount. So we are working with them in the next couple of months to figure out how they actually use an FTE, because we don't have that in the source data that we use, because they've got all the overtime and things like that. And that's where, once we get our hands on the finance data, we can actually measure that for FTEs and headcount.
Sir?
Outside of efficiency, how else are you demonstrating return on investment?
I actually, me and Rana were just discussing this the other day. One thing that we conclusion we came to, and I'll let, she's going to have a lot to add, but it's just in terms of manpower required on our team. We used to have a person who most of their time was taken up processing these Excel files. They get in the Excel files and they literally had a 7-page front and back printed out, full color thing that when she was away, I would have to follow and go through and do all this stuff in Excel and manipulation, manual manipulation. And that was before we could even send it out to our third party for them to plug into their T-SQL structure, because it was that finicky. And the amount of time it took, amount of headache, just was crazy. And plus it was error prone. So then it would turn around, they would have to spit it back to us. So if you add up all the lost time, that person did leave and went on to bigger and better things, but by that time we had just transitioned to Alteryx, and we literally didn't miss a beat. I mean, in fact, we were more productive because we just transitioned to Alteryx. So we didn't have to replace her directly. When we did replace her, it was we added a new functionality to our team.
We replaced her with Ian.
Yeah, we replaced her with Ian, and instead of doing the processing, we got another person who's really good with data and visualization and quips. So
for us, it's you take that, you lose that person, you lose those 8 hours that you're spending going through that 7, 8-page instructions, but you look at it in a year. We went from an HR dashboard to forecasting using Alteryx.
Yeah. It's not just replacement, it's additional capability, and we're getting better return because we're doing not just one dashboard, but 7 or 8.
If you're doing any kind of geodata, I know that Tableau is going to incorporate shapefiles soon, but if you're trying to pull out lats and longs from addresses, instead of doing batch geocoding from the Google API or a thing, we got a trial of the geo package, and I'm not going to process every single person in our ATS in a minute.
And our ATS is a lot of people because that's everybody who's ever applied to our company. It's high. I mean, it's based on TomTom and U.S. Census data, so
So the ATS is
The AT.
Oh, sorry, the ATS. I thought you were talking
It's
about.
whatever the employee inputs.
I thought you were talking about geospatial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll have people, because we have a lot of people overseas, they'll say that they're located in New York, but they're flying from Afghanistan. So they'll give us a U.S. address with an Afghanistan APO. So, yeah, there's some huge issues with data integrity pulling that out of it. So we can only do so much with ATS data, but.
And for us, it's going past the distance. It's actually doing drive time at a period of time, which we leverage for the flight risk model. So in our flight risk model, we didn't just look at distance. We looked at your actual drive time during rush hour traffic.
And we found a difference.
Alteryx has a special offer at the booth where you can get the full designer data pack, which includes the geospatial capabilities that he's talking about, census data, Experian data, et cetera, for $10K, which is $20K off. So
Okay.
if you're interested in that.
Yeah, maybe you can hook us up with that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys work with iTunes, but it can be kind of annoying to work with that data set. It is through Alteryx is way easier. iTunes is the census data, so if you're actually going to try to look at local labor markets and compare to what the kind of inputs and outputs that you're dealing with,
But if you guys have your employees' home addresses, for instance, in Excel files or whatever data source you're using, you can feed that into Alteryx and it'll give you out this file with latitude and longitude. You plug that into Tableau and you've got a map of where all your employees live. Obviously, there's a privacy issue there, but you could, render
We're
it up
okay
to
with
zip
it.
code. And you can then calculate commute times and then use that to figure out your flight risk. You'll find that probably when somebody gets an hour-long commute, they're not going to stay. I'm sorry, what were you asking? So you're asking if we've taken flight risk and used that to determine, to find out if we should not hire somebody based on like if they live too far away or something like that?
No. We're just looking at institutionalizing now. We haven't thought of that.
So you've talked a little bit about the changes you've experienced on your team. Do you have, can you share with us like what kind of FTE you're working with and what your team size looks like in the COE you recently built?
Okay, so we work crazy hours, so we're not normal. I on average put 60 hours a week, but that's because I'm in meetings out of 8 hours a day and then trying to catch up afterwards. I believe my team likes to do what they do. So when we were originally established in 2011, I was a team of 1. 2013, I hired 1 person. 2015, I hired a second person. No, 2014 I hired a second person. 2015 I brought in Josh, so I had 3, and then 1 left, so I was down to 2. But as people left, we figured out what attributes we wanted in a person and their skill sets in the next person. So that's how we managed a lot of our growth is we figured out what we didn't want, we figured out what we wanted, and we looked for that person in the future. So, phase 1, we had software developers, but we knew that wasn't what we wanted. We wanted a data scientist in, but yet, we were still kind of green. We could only pay so much, so we brought in what we could. The data scientist helped leverage us to the next step. He moved on to a bigger and better role someplace else. We're like, okay, now we know what we need to move on ahead based on conversations we've had with other people and what kind of skill sets that they need to have. So as people started leaving, we grew our organization based on what skill sets we need to move forward. And I think so far we've got a pretty good team. We just hired a data scientist, and apparently everybody needs a PhD. Or at least everybody I've talked to has a PhD lately. So it helps leverage us into the next step, because I'm not a data scientist. I'm a finance and IT major. I've worked with data for 15 years. Josh is a mechanical engineer. So likes to code in his spare time. He came in already, playing around with Tableau, had his own personal license, and kind of showed me all this stuff. He's an English teacher and a history major, but loves data visualizations and has a great eye for it. So you don't necessarily need a certain background. You just need the right skill sets in that team and make sure that they work together and that they do their work well. So that's kind of what we were looking for. So I wasn't really looking for a certain education. I was looking for the right person that fit that role and fit the team.
So as a follow-up, would you say your talent profile is primarily from external of HR?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
How do you handle data privacy? So assuming Alteryx has the access to all the data and conversation and all that, how do you handle that piece?
Okay, so on the Alteryx end, our data security is rock solid because we do everything within our secure folder. And not only that, if you wanted to, you could do the data anonymization. It's a pretty basic step that you can do in Alteryx. I'm not going to go into technical details, but you can assign a unique key to everybody. As far as Tableau goes, that's where the data management and the data questions are, and we're still working on that with Server. But as far as we know, if you talk to a lot of the Tableau people here, they'll tell you that the security is as secure as your organization allows that to be.
All our data is anonymized and it's all rolled up,
Yeah.
so you can't, even if you ran a report, you really can't dig into it.
But Alteryx is secure. It's as secure as if you have Excel files somewhere, wherever they are is really kind of determines their security.
I
right?
can't access it.
Right. I'm sorry, what was the question?
So we don't actually anonymize our data when we get it. So we get it based on, so we've got the employee ID, we've got the name and so on. We have all of that information when we get it from our HR reporting team. So we're not anonymizing it. They're just, I believe in their calculations through Alteryx, they're just rolling everything up as a count.
You can do the aggregation, and we do not anonymize our data, like Rhonda was saying. There is a way to anonymize within Alteryx using unique key fielding. And it's a pretty straightforward capability, but if you wanted to do that, then you would drop off the identifying information. We also delete people's names and all of that before we pump it into Tableau, and we use Alteryx to drop that data out. Anything that's distinguishing, you know.
Yeah, because right now we are rolling everything out through email or a SharePoint site, and everybody's got Tableau Reader until we've got Tableau Server. So that's where our security issue is, and we don't roll it out past senior leadership or past HR at the moment, and until we get and we don't roll it out past those functions until our VP of HR's CHRO actually tells us yes or no, and legal's okay with it.
Right. So 3 of these lines. That's right. These 3 lines, the black line and then orange, teal, and red are generated with, they're from Tableau. They're from our data, or they're from Tableau's own basic calculations based on these forecasts, right? The blue line is something we generate in Alteryx using forecasting, and Alteryx takes all that data and pops it into the TDE, and then Tableau takes that and calculates those other lines through that. Correct. Right. Liz? So you're asking how we calculate our attrition rate, like what calculation we use to do our attrition. We use the industry standard for annualized attrition. So the equation off the top of my head, basically it's...
So it's total attrition. It's basically your total attrition at that period of time. Well, at least, let's say 2016. Your year-to-date 2016 attrition divided by the number of months, so if it's divided by August, and then times 12 to annualize it. But we do an average head count. So it's your total attrition divided by average head count throughout those whole 8 months, for example, divided by 8 times 12. And we use the PwC Saratoga standard metrics definitions. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So you can actually go out to their website, and they've got a list of like over 200 plus metrics, and I'm doing a spiel for Saratoga. PwC, either Saratoga or People Analytics. So you go out to their website, they should provide you with a list of their top 200 metrics, or you could go to SHRM, and SHRM has the same thing.
Yes.
If you look at the attrition calculations, they've got some. PwC just has a little more, and they've got industry standards too.
All good.
Any other questions?
Oh, do we feed that into a financial forecast model? We don't feed this. Our finance informs some of our estimates for headcount, but have we done one of these for a finance group as a prototype? Yeah, we've done that once. But they kind of have their own methods. Our finance department does not use Alteryx yet. I know that Goldman Sachs uses Alteryx, and a lot of other finance and banks use Alteryx extensively. Our finance is not using it yet.
But we're hoping by partnering with them to do that cost of the workforce analysis on all those metrics that they would get on board with it. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.